Hi, Radhika, and welcome to this series of conversations. The idea here is to get women achievers, who we call women trailblazers, to share the stories of their lives with us, to tell us about their challenges, struggles, ups and downs, basically to motivate and inspire other women to get out of whatever is holding them back and realize their potential. And eventually, we want to build a community of women who are strong willed, strong minded, and are there to support and empower each other and grow with each other. So, welcome. And without much further ado, let's get started. Yeah.
Thank you, Sangeeta. Lovely to be here. I'm so glad we reached out to each other, and we are hopefully going to be able to have a little more compassion, a little more empathy, and a little more pride in what we do as women. And it's our first response to each other is great. I think the rest of it is going to just fall into place.
Oh, yes, definitely. Definitely. All right. So, the icebreaker, a little bit about your early life, your childhood, and what impact it had on your life.
I have to say, and I suppose I wear the hat of a mind coach, a therapist when I say this. So that's my automatic response, is that I believe when I look back, I can't really recall a moment where I felt inadequate or, a moment of pain. I truly and completely believe I was born to appreciate myself, appreciate life around me. And this is a question that comes to me really often saying, so you're a healer or a therapist, what happened? What happened that made you a healer? And I believe I was just born to love, marry the man I loved, had two beautiful girls. So when I look back, the programming that we receive as humans, when we're born into a certain space and time, is what sets us up for later. And being a therapist and regression therapist, I appreciate that in people, that when people come to me with loads of, a plethora of different diverse illnesses or disease or, misnomers, I always say it's okay. There's nothing so wild that doesn't have virtue.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do believe that we're born to love and we're born to reach out and grow as people. However, we're placed in situations, we take on these challenges ourselves. And when I look back, interestingly, when you say childhood, I go back to a time when I was in Delhi. I was, born in Patiala. I was in Delhi for the first 5 years. The only thing that comes to mind is my point of observation. So if you remember, we had an apple slate. There was a slate where we used to use chalk and draw and play, etc. And mine was a shape of an apple, and the leaf had an eraser. And I distinctly remember going back and being 3 or 2 and sort of scribbling and looking around and saying, I wonder how many people can observe me. And I remember this so well. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I wonder who I am. I wonder if I write this, if anybody can see. So I think the point of observation in doing what I do was born there. My parents, my dad, was a professional, worked for a company. Life wasn't so grand, but life was perfect. Like he came home at 6 o'clock. All through our lives, we were two sisters. We talked about things. It was very sweet, simple life. Mm-hmm. But it was also had the grandeur of great aesthetics, the right way to be, always eat on the dining table, things that were simple, but they were imbibed in me, and I sort of grew into it, wanted to have a beautiful home, explored sense of aesthetics within me and outside. So I think that sort of created the childhood years. Mm-hmm. Then for a little bit, we were in Bhopal for 5 years. And, cycling in next to the lake, going up and running around, the idea of nature and to just be impassioned by this, wanting to understand what is nature doing, stillness was born inside me. And there was the idea of why are we separated? Why have we deviated? So sort of that. And interestingly, in Bombay, then grew up and then spent many, many years in Bombay, I think 15 years, until I got married and moved to Delhi. And the idea of unselfish love. And I remember this is because we were at my Nani's house, my grandmother's house, and I locked the door and the staff couldn't come in, and we left home. And the staff couldn't come in, we were all locked out. And I know I had done that. And to save myself from being reprimanded, my sister just took the blame. Oh. And there was born unselfish love. And till date, she's there to remind me of that. Mm-hmm. And I also learned that being selfish you're disappointing other people.
Mhm.
And you're also carrying that disgruntled self inside you and that guilt
Mhm.
because you're selfish or guilty, because
Yeah.
within you, you're not born to be selfish. You're born to be unconditional. So I think these are the things that I remember from childhood. And to me, uh, that's the essence of me that shows up.
Great. Very, very interesting. Very, very, and very well put also. So you kind of just, given me a, how should I say, a summary of what kind of has, kind of stands out as far as your childhood is concerned. Very well put. All right.
Thank you.
So it was always a given that you would have a career and you would start working when you grow up, or, I mean, you could have easily, got married and not done anything in life. I mean, in that sense.
Yeah, well, I have to say, I was pretty much, I can't say I was intuitive, but a couple of things happened when I was a child. When I got really high fever, I was never a sick child. I was very happy and bubbly and joyful, but I remember getting fever many times. And I would sort of, it's funny, and I say it, to spell it out, but I used to sort of like traveling over the fields, like astral traveling. And I had wondered what this was until I grew up and I loved Pink Floyd. And there was a song called Comfortably Numb, which says, the words when I was a child, I had a fever.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to relate and understand um, the idea of the divide, the idea of the illusion. And it's funny, it fell into pieces. And so I started to explore. And my parents were like, in Hindi, you say nastic, that they were like, worship, very Arya Samaji,
Mm-hmm.
be good people. You don't have to have a ritual. There's no like visiting temples. Believe in yourself, be good people, be honest.
Mm-hmm.
So sort of I feel, so that's why I took to psychology. Also, I loved people always. So I thought psychology was a great career. And then my sister again was in advertising. She was in rediffusion. We were in Bombay. She had a great glamorous lifestyle, was bringing home friends, great success, hoardings out. She had done them. It was such a glamorous world when you're so young
I can imagine.
and such an impressionable age that I actually finished my last paper in psychology. And Rupert Murdoch came to India with Star TV. And lo and behold, I was knocking on the door saying, "Can I get a job?" And they were like, "Don't you want to just take a break?" And I was like, "No, actually, I do want to work." Made the first logo for Z. I was the flunky in the production, in the studio. And then actually walked in and nothing much was happening for a while. Walked into somebody's office who had just quit Lintas. He was a general manager. Gave me this amazing chance to sort of like take on the films that he was doing. There were 3 films on the floor. I had no idea of filmmaking.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know those days, whether there was simplicity or whether there was that eagerness to kind of respond to a situation. I landed up making 24 corporate films in 22 months.
Wow.
And those days we had to go buy the U-matic, buy the beta, find the art director, like go and visit the client, get the brief, pack up the film. And I think it was an opportunity. It was definitely my boss then believing in me and trusting in me. And I think there were simpler days where you sort of like found a trust with more ease. Competition was much less. The
Mm-hmm.
exposure was much less. And then he gave me the chance to work with Alec Padamsi. I
Oh,
mean,
wow.
we were, he was like the god of advertising. I was like
Yeah.
19 years old, and I was 20 years old. And I was working with Alec Padamsi on a project. We worked on the Kama Sutra. We came up with a co-beta version for Repro Computers, which is representing Apple in India. So I think opportunities literally fell in my lap. I embraced them. And then I went, I landed up being executive producer to a show called the Born Vita Quiz Contest, which was my baby. I conceived it. Again, my boss said, let's do this together. So he and I were, EP executive producers for the show. We had Derek on board and we ran the show for many years. And then I moved to Delhi. It was very news-based after I got married. And I landed up having a great PR agency. We represented watches, Omega Favaluba. We had some art shows, fashion, all of that. But there was this yearning inside me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, this is great. I mean, I was a success. There was money. There was all of that creativity, but there was a yearning. And I stepped back to the pedal. And when my first baby came into my stomach 25 years ago, I pushed the pedal and I was back to psychology, studied, became a mind coach, and been practicing for 25 years. So I don't know what you call this. You call this a series of coincidences. You call this, being intuitive. But I've found my journey and I've stayed there. And I do want to grab making a few films after a few years. So I think it's going to come around. But yeah, I don't believe as humans we are given one choice. I believe we're given many choices. How can we use our time and our energy and our intellect and our blessings to kind of synergize?
Yeah.
Is, I suppose, the greatest trial of our lives.
Mhm. So I
As
guess
long
you kind of brought it all together, and then you went back to your first love and like your kind of, the movies and of course the coaching bit. I think it'll go just hand in hand. Maybe you'll end up making a movie, on coaching or something. I mean, that's just a thought, but yes.
I am actually, yeah, working
Oh,
on the
you?
script. Yeah.
Okay, okay, okay. That's
And
great.
I landed up in my practice, taking up sports hypnosis, and I also trained in NLP, and I became the Olympic mind coach for the leading Olympians in India. So Rajyavardhan Rathore, who had won the silver,
Yeah, yeah.
Abhinav Bindra, who won the gold. And, after you win a medal,
Hmm.
until you win that medal and the coveted place, you're one among everybody else.
True.
After you win the medal, it's the hardest climb. If you ask any Olympian in the world, it is the toughest thing to do because you're then no longer who you are, who you were before you got the medal.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
are an inspiration. You're a role model. You have to live up to that image. You have to want to conquer that medal again. And you have to, I mean, I've had great teachers who've taken on the work with a lot of integrity. Ranjan Sodhi, who's the maximum number of medals for the country, he became now world number one. We worked together. So I worked with many, many, many Olympians over 4 years. And they've been such amazing teachers because they got me to get my work to be completely in detail. It had to be top line. I had to keep reading, studying. They kept me on my toes. And I love what I do because every single person is a challenge, and every single competition, every single week is a challenge. So it sort of made me walk my purpose. And I think I'm just extremely grateful to be doing this for my country, to be doing this to inspire my two daughters, to be able to do this. And the best part of this job is that there's a confidentiality arrangement that
Yeah.
I arrange.
Mhm.
And I don't believe there is pride in letting my husband know, my friends know in the evening over a drink that I work with somebody who got raped and she's better, or I work with somebody who, was assaulted by her husband, or, got cheated or lost their child. It's in that moment. It's literally, for me, it's art in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
It's done. It's a gift from the planet. I sometimes get emotional, and then it's over. I don't have to carry that, be praised
Yeah.
for it.
Yes.
To me, that is the transition. That is the most important part of, my success or my journey or whatever you call it.
Okay. So in this journey and of the transition, starting and all of that, any particular thing, any memory which talks about your challenges or any struggles that you had to face or you're still facing? I mean, as an individual and then as a woman also.
I have to say this: what you focus on, Sangeeta, expands.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe the world loves to dwell on certain information. When you dwell on certain information or ideas or perspectives, they become it.
Okay.
If we ever deviated from our matriarchal space, if we never deviated from there, or we did, but somehow found ourselves not feeling, outcast, not feeling lacking in power, not feeling inadequate, then we would have raised our children to believe that women are not inferior. We would have raised a society which appreciated us for being the people who give them the legacy.
Yeah.
They would have, we would have. So I really do believe, after having worked for so many years on, with the brain, and I believe I represent the brain. I'm an advocate of the brain and not of the mind, because the mind will always have 60,000 thoughts a day, 3 trillion brain cells. I mean, we have a million thoughts we can ride on. But if we choose, and I chose to, I'm not one of those feminists. I don't say, oh, yeah, of course we know that men are powerful. Of course we know the entire world is conditioned with this whole, a patriarchal system of, we know that women around the world do sort of let their husbands, hold the financial rein. All of that. They are sort of like physically more powerful, etc. If you believe, and I used to be a girl in Bombay, drive around, take trains, happy-go-lucky. I came to Delhi 27, 28 years ago this year, and I held the same pattern. I never went out wearing tiny clothes and, feeling, like this is a comfortable. Yeah, there you do realize that you're in a world which is slightly different, and it's slightly more conservative. So you're mindful, but I remained the powerful woman I was within my heart. Of course, I married a very conservative family out of choice. I had to sort of like find my way around, take a job, switch a career where I would be home. But now I feel blessed for it because I could be there for my girls.
Yes, yes,
I mean,
yes.
I think my greatest gift to this planet is my children because I've invested so much time, being with them and inheriting that love,
Mm.
and recognizing the love. And to me, it's been brilliant. And I wouldn't have probably done that if I hadn't moved to Delhi or recognized myself as a woman or, all those things. So I think it's about using your sort of womanhood to your advantage. I think it
Yes,
really
yes,
comes.
I totally agree. See, challenges we all have, I think, but it's the way we deal with them. Like they say,
Yeah.
lemons and lemonade, that sort of a thing.
Yeah.
So, yes,
Yeah.
everybody has challenges. It's not that men don't have or other women don't have. It's how you work your way around them. And I think it's your mindset. If you have a positive mindset, that you will focus on the good part. And I agree. I mean, when I look back on my life as well, things which I consider to be a challenge or a struggle, I think they've made me a better person because you become more resilient, you maybe become a fighter, you learn how to deal with situations which if you had just a very, very cushy life and where probably you've been waited upon by people or something, whatever it is, you probably don't become that strong, mentally strong, which I think now I am as compared to what I was maybe 10 years ago, 20 years ago. So I can see your point.
It's interesting that you say that, Sangeeta, because when I work with people,
Mm-hmm.
and I want them to sort of like there is the background or the backdrop of the chaos they come with or the trauma they come with, and I'm here, they're sitting in my chair, and I'm here trying to help them find a memory that is positive to begin with, at least to begin our work. And sometimes they understand, and sometimes they don't. And then I say this to them, and I say, do you know the understanding? And you triggered me to come up with this, so I'm sharing this with you. And I said, how do you understand wet? And they go, rain, water, dee. And I'm like, yeah, all good, all good, all good. And I'm like, can I share something with you which you will agree with? And they're like wondering, like, okay. And I go, wet because you know dry. If you didn't know dry,
Yes,
you would
yes.
not understand wet. And exactly what you're saying, with the background, behind us, we have this whole like conditioned reflex to take care of ourselves, to have to find our power, to walk into our entitlement, to walk into empowerment. Women's Day, talk about it. Men don't do all that. It's because there is that chaos behind us. There's that humdrum. There's that blather of women being weaker, etc. So we have to work harder, I have to say. I mean, if you're going to a big conference, I'm sure you have, I have, we sort of want to look the extra edge because you want to be in a room where there are a lot of men who are looking and saying, okay, so what do you bring to the table? Really? You coach the Olympic team? What do you do? Reiki? Like, what do there's this whole like iconic, like, non-misnomer of you're a woman and so you represent India, like really, so there is this, and I just sit back and say, what you don't know, you don't know. It doesn't matter. I know the little bit work I do, and it's all right. I never try to prove that, fight it out. It's not going to work.
It's not
Because,
worth it also, I think, somewhere. You have to be comfortable in your space and you have to be happy and peaceful, I think. And then I think you don't really bother about what people say or think about you.
yeah, I have this. So one of my books, I say this, and I just before we came on, I thought I'll read this to you.
Mm-hmm.
It says, again, it says, what we focus on expands. If you focus on what is missing,
Mm-hmm.
you will be cursed with the pain of inadequacy.
Yes.
If you respond positively to life's happenings and you believe the universe is happy with your response, you are working in tandem with the universal thread of consciousness. And I so totally, like I've written this, but I so totally go back to this all the time. When you respond to the universe and you believe the universe is okay with it, that means you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And if you're okay with it, you're aligning with the universal principles, that is going to go through, or in some way you're going to be rewarded for that.
Correct.
Yeah, so
Oh, all
that's
right.
really, yeah.
Okay. So, not as a woman, but as an individual, because of course, no matter what we say, women have to wear different hats and, juggle different balls all the time. So, anything, I mean, how should I say it? Any mantra or anything that you have come up with in your life which helps you do it? I mean, how do you balance and what do things you don't do or
Sangeeta,
do?
yeah, and I can say this very clearly. There is no great algorithm in the world for change.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and I say this because on Monday I'll work with an allergy, a girl who's been attacked by on the road or in the car or by a relative. I will work with an athlete who hasn't got his backhand right, or a shooter who hasn't got his trigger finger. On day two, I'll work with an eczema and somebody who has no, very low self-image, can't go back to work. And I can say that every day is such a it's so rewarding because every day I get to challenge myself. And to answer your question, in life, I believe the greatest algorithm is if you can anchor your own formula
Mm-hmm.
for getting to the next place from where you are to where you need to be.
Hmm.
And that's why all my books are about you. And the publisher, Bloomsbury, big publisher, great belief in me. Um, Says, why don't you talk about your clients? Why don't you have all these celebrities? You have like film stars, interview them, come up. And I was like, I don't want to be the guru. I don't
Hmm.
want to show them successful people. I want to show them that you're the guru. You can empower yourself. So every book is about you will be okay.
Yeah.
It's easy to be you. You beyond isolation are still all of the universe is with you. And to me, the algorithm is if you're asking me for a formula or how I use my own principles to make a change in my life or to believe in myself, I too have to anchor those. I too have to anchor that change. I too have to say, oh yeah, things look different now when I'm 52 this year to things that were back then. I mean, very recently, in fact, the last 2 weeks, suddenly, for some reason, a lot of the, credit for the Bonvita quiz contest came up in lots of conversations because I'm doing some book readings, etc. And this topic has been, not been discussed. In those days, we didn't have social media, so we didn't
Yeah.
kind of blow it out of proportion. And so a lot of people didn't really know I did this. It was my baby. The show started talking about it and saying, "Oh my God, I remember this show. It was so
Yes, yes,
inspiring."
it
Blah blah
was
blah. And
really.
I've lived those years, and to me it was something I did. It was part of my journey. Of course, I had great support, and there was great excitement, creativity, the opportunity to have the first show on private television, for heaven's sake. I mean, there was nothing else but ZTV was the first one after Doordarshan. So
Mm.
all of that. But when I look back now, it was a learning. And so to answer again your question, at every point in time, we've got to anchor the learnings from that. And interestingly, I was on a train going to Bhopal again. My parents shifted back from Bombay to Bhopal for a few years, and my dad retired. And I met this gentleman in a train. We got talking. My kids were really small, and he said, "Tell me about yourself." And I told him about my film career, and then I told him about the fact that I was doing regression therapy. And he said, "Interestingly, do you know why you had the film career and switched to regression therapy?" And I was like, "It's interesting to have this point of view from somebody who doesn't know you." And I was like, "Okay, what's your perspective?"
Mm.
And he said, well, when you made films, you would, have the mise en scène would be like you'd have an art. You think about how the film looked, what the
Mm-hmm.
sound was, the dialogue, the emotion, the feeling, the expression. And when you do regression therapy, you're doing the same thing. You're going back in time to a space and time when you didn't feel good enough. And that's how I work. It's interesting because I could be a good regression therapist because you can't write things down when you're working with somebody. You're taking them back scene after scene after
Yes.
scene back to the initial sensitizing event to the issue. And you sort of build that discipline because you've arranged those scenes in films and in movies and on the show, and you've sat through edits and you sat through music. And filmmaking is not an easy
Oh, no.
space. It takes a lot of diligence and hard work. And sort of that really, I stayed with that. I've never met the gentleman again. I wouldn't even recognize him if I saw him. But these are the masters who walk into your life and show you how, well, yeah, I did anchor a series of sort of like learnings to get to my next place, right?
So on a regular day, when you have maybe, tons of things to do, so how do you get from point A to point B? I mean, some of us
I
get all flustered and overwhelmed with the number of tasks.
So I make a list. I make a list in the morning and the night before, and the list carries on.
Yeah.
But I want to build in definitely I build in an exercise regime. I build in a time to read. I build in a time to reflect. It's very random on a day when I can't. There are times you have to give in time to a client depending on his need, especially when I'm training athletes. The competitions going on. I need to be online depending on their time in the world. So that's first. Now that my girls are, one's working in New York, one's studying in Boston, so now we're empty nesters, I'm able to use the time more effectively. While my girls were here, they were number one priority. I would work only when they were busy. School, when they went to school, I worked. When they went to classes, I did a session in the evening. When they were, doing their activities, I would plan my activities. When they went to bed, I partied. So I kept a balance, but they were number one priority. And I this is the best, I believe it's the best balance that I've ever created in my life, to be able to, give my life that sort of like, okay, this much. And my home was always important. It had to be pristine. I had to, have my friends over. This was like, the adda, everybody has to come in and celebrate their birthdays, and let's make it larger than life, and let's listen to Pink Floyd. And so it was all about, it was a good balance. And on a daily basis, without that discipline, scheduling something, we can be all haywire, all of us.
Absolutely. So yeah, listing it out, organizing, prioritizing. I think these are the key elements that one has to keep in mind.
And as a woman, Sangeeta, oh my God, I don't believe this one, facet, I don't believe men can ever find.
I agree.
I mean, they can't discover it because you're doing more than two jobs. If you're a working woman, and this has been said before, but do men sit and really think about this? You're looking after the house. You're obviously looking after your in-laws or parents or whatever, there's that, your children, your own needs. It's a multi, you have to do so many jobs at the same time. And I don't believe a man will ever understand this.
Totally agree. They'll never be able to, because I don't think they can ever function, at that level. I mean, first, they've never had to do it. And somewhere I believe they've never had to do it also because they can't do it.
Yeah, and this battle, I believe every woman, including me, will face, like, am I giving enough of myself? Am I giving too much of myself to this home and the family? And am I stepping back? I believe all women step back from their careers.
Yes.
I mean, I have not traveled with my athletes, to go to even the Olympics or even other matches, or to travel to other places to give conferences or talk about my work or take my books to places and do book work. So much of this would have been so different. I'm blaming the time. In reality, I did this purposefully and mindfully. But yeah, if I didn't want to be with the children, or didn't want the house to run the way it was, take care of my in-laws and parents, I would have climbed many more, sort of like notches in terms of my success or the money that I made, or be financially more independent, don't have to rely on the discretion of my husband. And I think this is something that we need to be very mindful of as women.
So, something, I mean, I just always feel that a woman not only grows vertically, only in her career, but she grows horizontally. You're growing into different roles because there are different roles that you have to play. So when you look at your own, growth in when you look back on your life and say, how successful you are, which is going to be my next question. But the thing is that, you don't just measure growth in terms of where you've reached in terms of roles or, going up the ladder or something in your organization, but also in terms of what you've done in other parts of your life, other aspects of your life. So for me, that's growth for a woman. I mean, that's my perspective.
Yeah. Well put, okay. Yeah.
So your biggest success so far?
To know that I am on a daily basis brilliant, perfect, a great contributor to this life, human enough to put others' needs in front of mine. I totally believe that that's my greatest success. I mean, yeah, one can measure it in terms of the fact that I was, one of the pioneers in the whole television space. I was sort of like a pioneer in my, taking, I don't know how many other people have been able to be a mental coach to an Olympian or a series of Olympians, and fact that I authored books, and the people who came out of the woodwork just to support the books, the book launches, the fact that the books have gone out to so many people and empowered them. So I suppose it would be two things. One, the fact that I can curate my journey into a space that says, that is able to speak out loud and say it's easy to be you. I'm able to help people recognize very unselfishly that you are the good. I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
You are as good as me or better. You have everything you need to go anywhere you want to go. And I think, to me, if I can curate that and believe in that, then that's my success. And when I look internally, I have to be easy. It's easy for me to be me. It's easy for me to wake up and feel so happy and feel so blessed and want eagerly to take on the day, want to meet new people who I can help, want to meet my girls, want to party, want to listen to music. I think so. To me, success is being happy with yourself.
Perfect. Okay, so every day is not the same. There are days when we are like not feeling so bright, so good, and you just don't want to do anything at all. So how do you keep yourselves motivated, inspired to get on and get going?
So Rumi is a great classic example. Rumi wrote something called the Masnavi, where he said, I came from the mineral, a space of minerals, I'm not saying it exactly, into plant kingdom. I came from the plant kingdom into the animal kingdom. I came from the animal kingdom into the human form. What do I have to fear? And to me, the greatest inspiration is, as long as I don't deviate from who I am or what I feel. If I become somebody I'm not, then I'm not inspiring myself. But as long as I can not deviate from who I am, then I can keep inspiring myself on a daily basis. When the distance between who I am or who I am to others is too far away, then God, it's going to take so much energy to finally first become who I am, then to respond to life. So my greatest inspiration is, I have learned, it comes from me, which is, I have learned to be present to my needs. I've learned to respond instead of react to things.
Wonderful.
It takes a lot of patience.
Yes.
Both my girls, 5 years apart, I breastfed them, very openly, for as long as they needed to. One was 17 months old, one was 15 months old. And when I felt that they needed to now learn independence, I told them stories and, about how, told them stories that they would believe, and sort of like got them to trust themselves more and, sort of lose that sense of attachment in terms of the physical space. And that comes with a lot of patience, on a daily basis, to be calm to your baby, to respond to your baby, and to your own needs, and then to the needs of the family. So that sort of patience now to respond to your family, then to respond to your clients, to listen. And so my greatest inspiration is if I can hear somebody else's story. And I remember being this child, Sangeeta, like everybody else, my father would say, let us finish before you respond. I'd say, oh, but the answer's in my head. Like every other child. I'd be like, nahi, isko badtameezi bolte hain. Tamiz se karo. Suno. There was this, how this Indian cultural ethos. Here, listen. I remember being as restless as everybody else. I wasn't born to be some, princess who understood. And I think when I look back, I have to say, the inspiration is from your own response to life. And when you know that you've responded to life in a certain way, that's mindful. It makes you go on to the next day.
Okay. So where do you see yourself 10 years from now?
10 years from now, I hope and pray that I can influence more and more people to fall in love with themselves.
Wow. That's a great thought. And I think the world needs that.
And I also, while on that journey, I hope to have more spiritual epiphanies, which means I hope that the masters who guide me are able to interpret consciousness for me, interpret the inadequacy in consciousness that I have to address. I hope I can come into more wisdom, understand science, and travel to places where I meet people more than just, being in places, but to meet people who are supposed to be my teachers or my soulmates. And we're supposed to ride this journey together. So it's pretty clear in how I feel this way. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay. So, what are some of the learnings of your life? I mean, some of the lessons which life has taught you and which you think can help others, they can also learn from them. Sometimes you're facing a tricky situation in your life, but when you hear someone else relate something similar, it gives you a sense of direction, and that, all is not lost. So, keeping that.
Most definitely, the learnings of my life are that we keep finding ourselves as humans. We keep finding places and times and situations to reprimand what we know, reprimand ourselves for not being good enough, for not believing in ourselves enough, for not coming to trust enough, for not being motivated enough. There's never a feeling of being satiated or complete. I mean, as mothers, this is the most fulfilling job of actually giving birth to a baby. It actually turns out looking exactly like somebody in the family or you. Just to know and embrace that sort of grace is a great learning. To literally break it down to every single breath, because without that breath, we won't be alive. And in that breath, how much of pain do we choose to absorb? How much of pettiness do we choose to engage with? How much of judgment do we seem to very ordinarily and very effortlessly walk into? And so the learnings are most definitely not to judge yourself being in a situation. You forget about everything else. You are going to be in conversations. You're going to let loose with a friend. You are going to have a great conversation with your husband and talk about everything. You're going to sit with your kids and tell them a little bit of, a narrative about something that somebody told you, which isn't so nice. So all of that is going to happen. That's part of the journey. But, just the fact that you must embrace the joy. And to me, I say this because I work every day with people who come to me, and they always say this to me, Sangeeta. They will say, "So, can we ask you a question? How do you walk yourselves out of this?" And I'm like, to me, this is my mission. This is something this is a purpose, and I'm walking my purpose. So when I'm done with that purpose, but I do have other, verticals where I also align with that sort of purpose. So I switch pretty much like a to-do list from one to the other. Of course, you take the gentleness of spirit with you. Of course, you take a little bit of that pain with you. On a day when you work with 3 or 4 people who've really had it rough, they will end up having a quiet evening and don't want to talk about things and don't want to feel joyful and don't want to get dressed and have a drink. And so the learnings are compassion. The learnings are we're one. We're one thread of consciousness. If I choose, and of course, I'll see people the way they are. I will say this person's not the greatest, or this person is not. I'm not some Sant Mahatma. I will feel the pain, and I feel also learning emotions, learning that it's okay to have bad emotions. It's okay to feel greedy. It's okay to, feel emotional. We've been, as children all over the world, you put a lid on, aise mat karo, ro nahi.
Yes.
Believe my children, both my girls, I would say this to them when they're very little, go to school, come back, not with your bags heavy with pain. If you feel somebody's pained you, for teachers not being nice, you feel the teacher's not being nice, teachers are all nice, but if you feel that something she said is out of bounds, let her know. Tap her shoulder and say, "Ma'am." So my girls would actually say, "Ma'am, I don't like you because you said this to me." They became older and they were very bright and very academically also bright and very, sort of like holistic approach, happy girls. But when they stood up for leadership positions, I know the school, the board said, well, they're very emotional. And I was like, I've taught them to be emotionally intelligent, to not fear in facing your emotion. If you're feeling bad, embrace it, get it out, come home happy, hug your mom and don't say, oh, that person hit me, my teacher's not been nice. Embrace that. Let's talk about it. Don't keep piling this up. Don't let it, become a cauldron of emotion that one day just bursts.
Yeah.
And you do that. I mean, these are the learning I could give my children, but we've done that as children. I don't think our parents had that sort of like three-dimensional emotional intelligence within them. They were not trained. Our worlds in our area trained us to be emotionally intelligent. You have to be traditional, and you have to be modern, you have to be outgoing, but you have to be chup. So these are, I think, grand learnings.
All right. So a successful woman who's done fairly, if not, very well, but fairly well in various aspects of her life. How does the world react to that?
In the way that she projects it.
Okay.
We know that a lot of women get away, not get away. We know a lot of women are praised for what they bring to the table, are praised for their success, are praised for their wisdom. And then there are so many who are not, because we're so conditioned in a world to look down upon ourselves. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is, and I hope and pray that every woman feels the need to be financially independent, because that seems to be something that can continuously bring you down. Because on an everyday basis, you need the money to make yourself go to the parlor, to make yourself buy yourself a ring, to buy yourself independence, to buy yourself freedom, to buy yourself self-worth, to build that relationship with yourself. So that sort of, and this whole old age misnomer that you marry a man and he takes care of all your needs. Sure, he does, but he doesn't know how to. He hasn't been taught to look into a woman and know what she really needs. It's okay to take a woman for granted, because for a man's perspective, isn't this enough? But from a woman's perspective, she's looking for that appreciation. So, my guiding sort of principle of light would be, find a place where you can allow people and create a space for people to look after you as well. Yeah, sure, act as if you're a little more sensitive, do the drama, find that attention, because you are needy of that attention. Men are not looking at you for it, to give you that
Communicate,
attention.
basically. Yeah.
Communicate, express yourself. And a woman who is today successful, men are wearing a filter. The world is wearing a filter. It still continues to wear a filter. When women make great success of themselves, film stars, the women are meant to have gone through a channel which is not very clean. And why do we look at women like that? Why don't we look at men like that? So I believe it'll change, but are we carrying that sort of like imprint? Are we looked at through, a microscope? Yes, we are. And fortunately, we shouldn't buy into it so much, but we still can't ignore it. We can't become oblivious to it. Yeah. We have to do what we're doing today, right now. You and I looking after each other's needs, being sensitive to what you say, or me being sensitive to how you want this to show up, me being available to you, you being available to me to find me. So, understanding with compassion and putting it out there and saying it's okay. It's okay that we exist in a world where there is fear of women being successful, but go out there that you're okay. You come with the gentleness of spirit, and you are going to make things better, and you are making a better world every day.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So maybe you can't change what people say or do, but you can change the way you deal with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Or the way you showcase it. And sometimes it takes a lot of strength to appear solid when you're not. As women are always sensitive to things. That's a classic. That's how we are innately born. Our chakras, we have the upper four chakras. We have the heart chakra, we have the communication chakra, we have the intuitive chakra. Men have the lower three chakras. It's yin and yang that comes together. If I, as much as feel so insecure that my husband is looking at somebody, then I'm being really silly because that's his innate sense. He needs to look at the wonderful woman or the beautiful or the beautiful woman, or if he thinks she's beautiful, he needs to do that. That's his guiding principle. He needs to project because that's how he's created to be. We need to cave in because our innermost privacy is caved in. So if you really study the anatomy of the human body, we are meant to exchange yin and yang. And when I go out and be the woman, I wear war paint and I look broader because I'm banking on some energy. When the man goes all, oh, I like this baby, I think he's so cute, you're so beautiful, he is borrowing from his woman. This is a fact. If we appreciate this, both genders, we will find that balance that we are meant to have. For sure, the electric magnetic energy that the universe is sort of created will align. We won't have floods. We won't have tsunamis. We won't have, earthquakes, because the world is then you're responding as a human to the world that you're a part of in the manner. But if I'm going to be wearing egotistical and talk about myself, or egoistical and be the person that I did this and I had the babies, or the man goes, I brought the money, then you're not borrowing from each other. You're not respecting from each other. The universe is going to be in pain because the universe is part of you. So it is going to respond to you in the manner in which it created you. And that, I believe, is the grace we need to give it. And if we understood this, men and women would be happier with each other.
I agree.
I don't believe we can, as I'm saying it, I don't believe I have the perfect marriage. I greatly in love, all is great. But the sense of perfection is hard for today, is hard for an accomplished woman. I have to say that. Because you want to lean in, sweet wife, and you want to lean in, be the perfect mother, and at the same time you want to say, stand up for yourself and say, hello, this is what I bring to the table, so there's all of that.
So I think what is perfect is also subjective. Then there is nothing perfect. That's just, I think, in our heads. Nothing can be perfect.
So Abhinav Bindra, one of the people I worked with and a great teacher to me, and we worked incessantly and for too long, and we worked in too much technique. And at the end of it, we were like, what are we doing? But he said this on one of my book launches, where he came as a guest. And he said this, and it comes back to me so easily. He said, perfection is an untamed beast. And I often now quote him because it's, like he said, every time I went to a sport or to a competition, people said, enjoy yourself. And he's like, it's not enjoyment. I can't enjoy this.
Definitely not.
When I think of perfection, I think of that, sort of like quote, and I value what he said, and I admire what he said, and, everything that he came with and everything that he's become. Just as one classic example of somebody who went after perfection, found it, became a, example for so many people, and sort of maintains a dignity to sort of give back. And so, yeah, perfection is an untamed beast.
Sure. Okay. So if you've looked around yourself, and I think you're also an example of that a lot of people nowadays in their midlives, when they reach their early 40s, mid 40s, they start looking at different career options. They want to switch from whatever they were doing earlier to something maybe totally different. And why do you think they're doing that? And is it okay to do it? I mean, what are your views on it?
I switched careers between media and the work that I do as in psychology. So there's one lesson I learned from my husband very early on. We used to have these discussions, and I remember we said to each other, and what he said to me, and I remember this and retain it, that let's both work in the fields that we've trained ourselves, because if we try and ape the kind of money people are making, or the kind of success they have, or the homes they have, or traveling plans, or whatever it may be, if we start looking outside of us and try to find an organized way of earning money, or having a career which we're not trained to do, we are going to stumble. And I suppose I held on to that, and also held on to my career because the masters won't let me do anything. I'm guided like God, I'm pulled in that direction. I had a guru, a very big guru, once asked me in Punjabi, Jara tu kaam kar diye, the work that you do, kyun kar diye, why do you do it? And in my best Punjabi, I grew up in Bombay, so I didn't, not my colloquial language, Now it is in Delhi. And I said, Khichda.
Okay,
And
got it.
literally, and I think to answer your question, when people shift their careers today, Khichda hai. Something tells you I'm not in the right place at the right time. I'm old enough to know my mind.
Mm,
I'm old enough to sort of come into my sort of, space of mindfulness,
yeah.
not engaging with it fully, perhaps, but knowing a little bit more that I can do. And
Mm,
it's okay for me to, because life is a journey. It's not just about one thing. Like we said originally, what you said, that women come with wearing so many hats.
yeah,
It's the same thing for every human. I believe it's a good change.
it is.
So while I value what I did, which is stuck to my career, because I had the tools and I can only get better and better,
Mm,
know this and become subconscious. It becomes like my third, my fifth limb. What I
mm,
do is my fifth limb. I'm able to reach out to people with the capacity to do what I do subconsciously. I can have a conversation with you and bring up so many aspects of my work so easily because they're part of me. So I
mm.
believe that's one. But who says you can't take this to the other sort of career? Who can't take the wisdom from one into
Huge thing.
another? We can. So to answer that, I think for the youngsters, go out and, jo khichda hai wo karo.
I
So
think there is a lot of awareness also. And when you look around, there's so much information. And sometimes, when you made a career choice, you were young and immature, and maybe you started doing something which you just at that point thought was the right thing for you to do. But as you grew up and you kind of got exposed to different kinds of people, different ways of living, different careers, you figured that, this is something that I don't like so much. Sometimes you get your calling late in life. So I guess that awareness is coming, which early then I
absolutely.
think, which is unthinkable. Nobody would have done it. But yeah, it's good.
No,
It's
and a great question, Sangeeta, because if you put this out there, I think a lot of people, I believe a lot of people are looking out for this guidance. Am I doing it right? So I
Mm,
think this question is a brilliant question, well curated, because this is what needs to go out to people that find the guru inside that guides you to other things and then use something from this career into another one. Go out, live your life, take the journey.
yeah.
Great question.
Thank you.
Hmm.
Okay, so as a successful woman, I just want you to, just share some piece of advice for young girls who are on the threshold of their personal lives, professional lives. There's so much happening nowadays. You do need a sense of direction. And sometimes, children are not so receptive to what the parents are saying. But somebody else says something and they feel that, okay, she's done something or he's done something, and what they say, it carries some weight, some value. So keeping that in mind, what would you say a girl should kind of focus on as she goes along?
So I earmarked this and this may help here. The most precious gift, and this is my first book, the
Okay.
most precious gift that the universe has manifested is your ability in using your senses to come into the awareness of yourself. You are every bit of the universe as much as every bit of the universe is you. Yet you are more because you come facilitated with the potential to enable all of the universe to know itself fully. Um, and to simplify this, to say that no matter what you do, you're a gift to this planet. The only reason the universe chose to have you on board is to add to it.
Mm-hmm.
So every single day, trust what feels right, add it to your kitty of tools, believe in it, put it out there, put it on social media, whatever makes you happy, improve your self worth. So if there's one thing that you need to do is on a daily basis, because the only reason that people put you down is because they want to look good. And they're going to keep putting you down because people want to look good. And this is going to be a challenge no matter where you are, in school, in university,
Yeah.
at your early state of your job, when you've reached the, success at your job, in your families, in your in-laws, in your own parents, in your peer group. People are not so happy with your success because people are always looking down within themselves and saying, there's a lot of pretentious, sort of like appreciation. But if you keep trusting yourself, then people only look at you to say, oh, she's got it. And they're forced to appreciate you. Today, Virat Kohli, Maro's a sixer. We are all clapping. We're not saying, oh, he's bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Today, somebody wins an Olympic medal, we're like, oh, he's good. So the only way you will move forward is every single day improve that self-worth, not self-image. Self-image will come.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
self-worth needs to
Self-worth.
grow on a daily basis, because every day look at yourself and say, I'm a gift to this universe. I'm here for a reason. I have a purpose. I'm going to make this okay. So that's my sort of like guiding statement to people.
So, is that more for girls and boys, or is it generic?
It's true. Oh, it's generic.
It is
It's
generic.
generic.
Anything in particular you want to say to girls?
Look after your own needs.
Hmm.
Express your emotion. Don't be afraid.
Yeah.
If the issue lies in us not being able to be expressive enough because it's not correct, or it's not supposed to be the right space and time and consciousness.
Mm.
And when we don't express ourselves, we're bottling ourselves, because that's our first instinct. So just express. If I could just shout out, I would say, express yourself. It looks good, it looks bad, it's out of you. If you carry it with you, it's going to corrupt your system.
Yeah.
It's like a hard drive. Keep throwing it out, cleaning it up if it doesn't happen. So a woman pretty much needs to do that. And every little girl needs to get that message, because every little girl has got so much to express, but it's told, shh, ye nahi theek, bolna nahi chahiye. We know this, Sangeeta. This happens all the time. So yeah, it's a great question again, because every girl needs to know, express yourself, darling. Say what's in your mind. Your heart will not lie. You will not be, don't be afraid of displeasing other people. Do it in the right way. Or just speak your truth. Jesus said, the truth shall set you free. I so right with that line. When you say what you have to, you feel so calm. You feel so
Relieved.
good.
Yes, something off your mind.
And for women, it comes so easy, right? Because you are innately intuitive. You are innately communicative. For men, it's a lot more difficult to express themselves. So I don't know what to say to them, but since you asked me that question, I would say that to girls. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So finally, can a woman have it all?
Yes, I will say yes.
I will say too, but then let me hear what you have to say.
I will say yes, because I am also effectively communicating with myself. And I think, really, to point this out, if there was one sort of like unfamiliar scientific fact, it's this, that as we go from day to day as humans, the point of observation that a woman has is much larger, much more magnified than the point of view a male has of himself, because he's not innately intuitive, he's not innately communicative, he's not innately in his heart chakra.
Yeah,
he is his space of having giving birth to projections of his energy makes the roads what they are, his energy makes the buildings what they are, his energy co-creates this sort of like reality. We are in the space of essence. So can a woman do it all? She can, because she is innately more present to what's unfolding than a man. He may be more responsible to create, but a woman is much, much more present, more realistically present to herself and to what's unfolding. Of course, she can have it all. In fact, I believe women will start to lead. They will start to lead. The male ego is going to crush and crumble and fall apart. And because we've had this chaos behind us, that not good enough, can't do this, can't do that, women are getting out there and saying, I can show you, I can prove this. Will our bodies accompany us? I hope, because our bodies are also go through a lot. Our hormones are fluctuating. We give birth, we expand, we contract. Hearts are bringing us up and down. Our hearts are contracting, expanding. So our breath is contracting, expanding. We're going through this whole this flood and the tsunami at all points in time. So I hope and pray that the universe is kind enough to bring back that matriarchal arc of power. And I will say this again, yes, women I believe they do have it all. We just have to twist the perceptions.
Yes. And like you said, I think it's women who can connect all the dots rather than the men, because men, like you said, they are responsible, but it's we can feel because we have the intuition, we have the ability to maybe we are more sensitive, more emotional. So we are, I think, able to, give complete the picture, if I may say so.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So that's it. And thank you so very much. It was like actually very, very interesting and very enlightening. I mean, I think
Thank
I've learned,
you.
interacting with you. It was really wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Sangeeta. Your questions were so amazing. Yeah, I believe that every single moment of our lives, if we can strengthen ourselves from recognizing value in each other, we're doing exactly what we were saying. We are strengthening every woman on this planet. And so she can compromise less, and she can trust and believe in herself.
Yes.
And then we can rule the planet again.
All right. Okay.